Campo is in Seattle. Our daughter is having surgery, and that is her location. Any objections to her absence?
Keeping in touch with First Energy through Karen Kirsch. At 7:30 p.m. on Saturday, she informed me there were 3,600 homes without electricity in the city of Avon Lake. On Sunday at noon, at 12:30, 500 homes were still without electricity, and at 2:30 p.m. on Sunday, it was down to 342. Unfortunately, at 2:30 in the afternoon today, there were still 54 homes without electricity. They were in the Beechwood, Fairfield, and Electric Boulevard area. Moorwood is also experiencing an outage, and that I believe that they are included in that number. So, well, an individual from the Auditor of State's office appeared today, dropping off an award, and it's to the City of Avon Lake. Steve Presley, Finance Director. This award is presented for excellence in financial reporting related to your comprehensive annual financial report and compliance with the applicable laws for the fiscal year ending 2017. Your exemplary reporting serves as a standard for clean, accountable government representing the highest level of service to Ohioans, signed by the Auditor of State. So, Mr. Presley, congratulations. I'll give this to you later, okay?
Thank you. I distributed my weekly update, but due to the storm this weekend, we have sent out additional crews to pick up branches across the city. We've had them sweeping. Usually this time of year we have one truck that just works across the city, but now we currently have 3 of them out and about. So please leave your branches out. We will come by and grab them.
I also want to indicate that there was an article in the press on the charter amendments, and issue 21 there was some confusion about. It indicated that the proposed charter amendment would provide for a permanent replacement for the mayor in case of his unavailability. However, that is not correct. Issue 21 would provide an amendment to the charter for a temporary replacement for the mayor. We already have a charter provision providing for a permanent replacement for the mayor in case of resignation, death, or whatever, and I am hopeful that the press will add a correction in its next issue, and we apologize for any confusion.
Go ahead.
Address the false accusation of Mr. Lux, and I want to correct the record as to what I told him. I explained to him that I represent the residents of Ward 1, which is true. I do not represent the residents of Ward 2, and I would never state anything along the lines of I don't care about the residents of Ward 2, but that it's my duty and obligation to represent the residents of Ward 1. It is accurate that I indicated to him that I am concerned about a lawsuit to the city, which of course would impact the residents of Ward 1, but I just want to very clearly articulate that I never mentioned that I do not care about the residents of Ward 2. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, sir.
We've lived here all these years in Avon Lake, and I've developed from Toledo to Oberlin to Florida. I have never once not gone by the code that all of us live by. Every developer, no matter who comes into Avon Lake, the big boys, the little boys, they got a code. You folks honor the code. You folks enforce it. We went by the code. We went through all the department heads. We made our proper application. We got all the public exposure. Everything that the department has needed done was done. Everything on Planning Commission, the Planning Commission had their concerns, was taken care of. By some chance, it was approved 7-0. We've come this far. As you can see, I haven't made everybody happy. I said at the last meeting, hopefully the one fellow that was up before would have been here. We'll take care of that one. And we're here tonight. If you see fit that we've gone by the code, and that's how we live in Avon Lake, we have made the commitment that we will go back to Planning Commission, but we need something to go back with. We've taken in all the remarks that we've heard from everybody. Susan Donovan gave me a whole package of ideas, drawings, etc. We've got different different things to go over from Tracy and a few other people here. I've met with a few of them. We met with a few of them originally with their association meeting. Very few people said anything then. Now it's really coming up. But no matter how you vote, if you vote yes, wonderful. I'm still going back to Planning Commission addressing all the people. If you vote no, I'm still going to go back to Planning Commission and address all the people. So it don't make any difference.
An ordinance approving a revision to the general development plan for Legacy Point Plan Unit Development.
Never easy decisions. I've talked to a number of residents, both by email and by discussion. And I also talked to all the department heads. I read the minutes of the Planning Commission, and I'll be supporting the legislation this evening. The proposed development falls within the R1 single-family zoning district governed by a lot and the density requirements. They both are met. The plan meets the requirements. The layout conforms to the previous standard of development. It was confirmed by a 7-0 vote by the Planning Commission, which includes 2 elected officials, both the mayor and Mrs. Fenderbosch. And I didn't see any, Mrs. Fenderbosch, and I have a lot of respect for you as our representative of the Planning Commission, but I didn't see any definition in the minutes that you voted for it to move it to council. It sounded to me you voted for it to approve the plan as submitted. In terms of the stormwater, which originally was the #1 concern, the plan details the use of retention ponds, backyard drains, added catch basins, drain tiles, pitchings of fairways to change the drainage and limit the flooding. On the improvement plan, these will have to be detailed by the developer on the next round, and will need to also be approved by Mr. Wrights in working with CDM and Jones and Henry, who are our 2 stormwater firms, and for the development to occur, it's got to go back to planning and council. Is that correct, Mr. Wrights, in my assumption of that?
That is correct.
So dealing with the flooding issues, and which was the first round of what residents wanted to do, my basement's flooded. I've gone through that twice. I know how that is. Certainly, Mr. Koff will have to address those issues and go back to planning at that point in time. In terms of traffic, the plan was approved by the fire and the police chief, and the cul-de-sacs were widened during those sessions for the emergency vehicle passage and safety. It's my understanding that the construction traffic will not go through Heron Bay. The construction traffic is going to go through the different route that was noted. In terms of Legacy Parkway, which I know has been a continual issue with traffic, I know the police have tried to monitor that in talking to Police Chief Streeter. And the mayor noted in the minutes that continues to be a monitoring of that street for speeders. Landscaping, the developer has been open to adding landscaping, especially in areas of the street. The one gentleman by English Turn, I guess, would get a lot of issues dealing with headlights, and he has offered to address that. The density issue, which was approved by the administration, meets the standard.
So when this whole process started, the question was asked to the law director, what choices does council have? As Planning Commission's criteria for voting for something is much narrower than what City Council can do. But we were advised by the law director that we have 3 choices. We could either vote to approve the plan as it is, we can either vote no on the plan as it is, or we can do nothing, at which point the plan would go into effect as it is. I wish there was a 4th choice. I wish there was a choice that we could approve the plan with reasonable modifications to it. And hearing what I've heard from the residents over the last few weeks, I think there's room for reasonable modifications. The plan does meet the code, as Mr. Koff says, but City Council, the Avon Lake Police Department, other parts of the administration deal with discretion all the time. With our laws, with our ordinances, with our codes, we don't look at everything either having to be black or white. We can look at things and use discretion to work for the best possible solution. So my vote tonight is going to be no, not that it's a referendum on Mr. Koff or his company. They build beautiful homes. And this development will go in at some point, and it will be a beautiful development. However, I think that it needs modification.
Mr. Law Director, if you could just articulate, if City Council were to vote against approving this recommendation from the Planning Commission, what is the recourse of the developer?
Well, because this, the role of the council in either rejecting or approving the decision of the Planning Commission is an administrative decision. It's subject to appeal, and if the court finds that it was arbitrary or capricious, it could reverse the decision of council, and the plan would be deemed approved. So unlike legislative actions which can't be appealed, an administrative decision can be appealed by the developer to the Court of Common Pleas.
Thank you, Mr. Law Director. Mr. President, if I can continue. I appreciate that, and I certainly understand where Mr. Cross is coming from, and I suppose I disagree with him because I think City Council is in the unfortunate position of not being in a discretionary position to make a decision on this. I wish we were. I wish we could have the fourth option. That certainly would provide us some more satisfactory options on this, but as I understand the situation as been presented and recommended by a 7-0 vote by Planning Commission, and as the administration has indicated to the City Council that the proposal meets the code as it's written today. And given that, it is difficult for us as City Council sitting in essentially in an appellate position to go outside of what the code dictates to us and not approve something that meets the code. And so I feel like because we are not in a situation where we have much discretion, we are obliged to approve what has been proposed to us. And if we don't, we do expose ourselves to at least the ability, and of course that's the decision of the developer, the ability of the developer to further appeal this on to the Lorain County Court of Common Pleas, bringing the Planning Commission and the city a party to that appeal and expending more time and expense on that. That's not something I'm interested in pursuing on behalf of all of the city. While it's not exactly savory to everybody or fortunate to everybody, I think that's the role we're in, and because of that I have to make a decision based on that. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
I know that there's some other concerns, you know, traffic and work trucks coming up and down the street, and I would say, and I've told other residents that I've talked to in Heron Bay that, you know, Legacy and the rest of the development, you know, had to endure those conditions when your neighborhood was built, and so I think that I don't know that would be a situation that I would, you know, vote against it because of more development within the area. Mr. Koff owns that golf course. He's at liberty to do what he wants to do with that within code. And after talking with the law director and our administration here, and after reading through the code myself, I feel that he is within the code of doing that. And that's why I'm voting yes for this. Thank you.
Mr. Lieberman, this is probably a close vote. I would imagine if it's a 3-3 vote, the ordinance would fail. Is that correct?
Well, the way the ordinance is written, it appears that, and I would do some checking on this, obviously, but my reaction is you have one of two choices. You can approve it, you can reject it. If you take no action, it's approved, deemed approved. So a 3-3 vote to me indicates you've taken no affirmative action, either to approve or reject the Planning Commission's recommendation.
I would like to venture a suggestion, though, given that there are 6 members of council. Our 7th member, unfortunately, for very legitimate reasons, cannot be here this evening, and certainly it is entirely appropriate that she's with her family this evening. But I would venture a motion myself, personally, if I got some feedback, to postpone to a time certain under our own ordinances, to delay a vote on this in order that we have 7 members and an odd number of members available to make a decision. I think that gives satisfaction to the residents. I think it gives satisfaction to the developer. There are no outstanding issues and ambiguities as to what a tie vote means. And it just might be a better result, up or down, right? I think people would rather hear up or down if we delayed this. So that would be my suggestion, and I'd be happy to venture a motion to that end.
Like I said, I will do the research on this if you elect to go forward with the vote tonight, but I would just point out that unlike most of your legislative decisions where you have a motion and if it doesn't receive a majority vote, the motion basically dies. In this situation, you're acting as a reviewing body of Planning Commission's decision. When a court of appeals looks over the decision of a lower court, if they reach a tie vote, the lower court decision stands. So this is a quasi-judicial administrative proceeding. It's not a legislative proceeding. So as I said, I will do to come up with what I hope would be a definitive answer, although I may not be able to. But in my best, right now, shooting from the hip, just looking at the way this ordinance is structured and looking at the relationship that's set up between this body and the Planning Commission and deciding whether or not to approve the Planning Commission's vote, in my opinion, a 3-3 tie does not reject the decision, does not overturn the decision of the Planning Commission. But I will do the research on it.
Okay, with that, we'll have the vote, Ms. Rossmarin, the vote on 11,157, please.
Mr. Arnold?
Yes.
Mrs. Fenderbosh?
No.
Mr. James?
Yes.
Mr. Koss?
No.
Mr. O'Donnell?
Yes.
Mr. Zuber?
No.
And with that, we have a 3-3, and get the opinion of the law director, and we'll have to wait and see how that comes out. With that, we go to any announcements anybody has. Mr. Koss.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Council President. It's going to be a little difficult adjusting from the previous discussions to something that I think that we can all agree upon, and that was this past Saturday's very successful but very trying Boo by the Woods and Trail of Haunted Tales. The mayor had mentioned in his report the damage that was done throughout the city and what the weather conditions were like. We were dealing with a National Weather Service gale force warning. We had a code red at 4:30 in the afternoon. We had power outages throughout the city. And when that code red went out, I was actually in the Cough Reservation at the time. And it was scary as we were setting up for the haunted trail. Seeing those trees swaying, branches coming down, I couldn't get out of there fast enough. Once we were out, it was quickly realized that for the safety of the public, there was no way that we were going to be able to put anybody into those woods. So what we had to do, at 4:30 that call was made and when we canceled the event. At 4:45, dozens of students from the Avon Lake Drama Club, Avon Lake High School, began to arrive at the library in their costumes and their makeup. They had been preparing their scenes and their dialogue for weeks. And as they came through, I had to tell them that the haunted trail that they had worked so hard on for the last several weeks was canceled. You can imagine that disappointment of how that affected them. It was then that I looked at Mr. William Rutger, the director of the library, Mr. Frank Mamana and Woody Simmons, our trail designers, and I said, hold on, wait a minute. And all the leadership team for this event huddled, and we quickly, from 4:45 in 1 hour's time, was able to convert the basement of the Avon Lake Public Library into the haunted basement, and Boo by the Woods became Boo by the Basement. And it ran exceptionally well. To be able to put that together, to bring props in, to put the lights in, to organize all of that in 1 hour in anticipation of people coming through. And then we're thinking, well, this storm is going on, this code red went out, nobody's going to show up. And we were very pleasantly surprised when the people started pouring in at 6 o'clock. Probably because they didn't have power at home, but they continued to come in, and by the end of the night, it was such a hugely successful haunted trail. The most unique thing and probably the most fun thing that we did was put that together on a fly, and the tremendous feedback that we had from the community. It was really, really touching. It wasn't our biggest haunted trail, that was last year. It wasn't our most elaborate, but it was the best. and it was the best because of how we did that. And we got the record, we got the attendance numbers today from the library, and we had 1,024 people attend in that, which was just incredible. I need to name these people because they worked their butts off. They worked their butts off to do this. Mr. William Rutger, this was the core group that worked together. Mr. William Rutger, Shay Altmont, Sybil Wendling, and Nicole Haas, who was incredible. That was our core group. We began meeting in April to plan this, and those guys were just absolutely wonderful. Mr. Dan Cotton and Samantha Passa, also from the Avon Lake Public Library, and their entire staff, we thank them. Sergeant Carrender and the Avon Lake Police Department, Joe Wrights and his Public Works Department, the Avon Lake Kiwanis, Mr. Zuber for being there, helping to pass out the cider, Avon Lake Key Club, Amy Potomac with the Lorain County Metro Parks, Marty Gallagher with the Avon Lake Boosters, the 501st Legion, which were there. Those were our Star Wars characters. The superheroes for kids, that was Spider-Man, the Incredible Hulk, and all the rest that attended. And the group from Believe, Dream, Dare, that was Princess Elsa and Cinderella that attended. Frank Mamana and Woody Simmons from the Cleveland Haunt Club, who did just an amazing job organizing the haunted trail with their props and designing that. It was absolutely incredible. I'm sorry that nobody got to see it this year, but they did the best that they could to recreate it inside in 1 hour, and they did a wonderful job. And also to Patty Frank from the Avon Lake Drama Club and the nearly 40 high school and drama students that volunteered, that put their costumes together, that wrote their own vignettes, and got the opportunity to do them despite of all the obstacles. Also our corporate sponsors, Koff Construction, Kowalski Ford, Jim Miller, Howard Hanna, and Salad Craze. This event doesn't happen without all of their generosity, so we thank everybody. But we thank the residents of Avon Lake that in the worst of conditions that Saturday night came out and supported us, and it really touched us to see that outpouring and the feedback that we had. It was our most trying one, but it was also our most endearing, so I want to thank everybody for that.
Thank you, sir.